Hello and welcome to my podcast, Tom Sips Back into Conversation With. This week I am talking to another guest that I had on previously, Lizzie, as you might know her, Hive Knits on Instagram. She also has a podcast on YouTube. She first came onto the podcast back in 2021, episode 7, and she was also in an episode of Crafting Mental Health Awareness, a series I did on YouTube where people talk about their crafts and how it has helped with their mental health. It's a really good series. I definitely would recommend to go and check it out. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share and all of that cool stuff with this podcast. It really helps if you do all of that. In the last episode, I spoke a little bit about how I was recently made redundant, and I think this conversation was taken in place in a little gap of time where I didn't have any work. So that's how I was able to record a couple of these episodes. But I am happy to say that I have got a new job, and it's really cool. It's working in a kitchen, which is over in Leamington, and the food is all made from scratch. Kind of one of the downsides is that it takes about 15 minutes or so for me to get a bus over to Leamington from Coventry. But I am using that time to knit quite a lot, so I'm making a lot of hats and trying to catch up on some of the knitting projects I want to do, especially with Christmas just kind of around the corner. I'm going to be at a market at Fargo in Coventry from the 2nd and the 3rd of December, so I'm trying to make some hats ready for that. So yeah, that's kind of like a little update from me. So a bit about this conversation. Lizzie and I have a really good catch up, and we talk about what's happened since the last time we did the podcast, a bit about work, life, about her podcast. It's a really good conversation, and if you haven't seen the original first conversation that we had, definitely go and check it out as well, because it's really interesting to see where she was about just over a year ago to almost 2 years ago to now. Yeah, I'll be back at the end of the conversation with a little bit more chat and a little bit more of an update on patterns that I'm creating. But for now, I hope you enjoy this episode. We slip into the conversation with me and Lizzie. Yeah, it's been a while since, like, I think the podcast came out the first season came out in 2021. So it's been over a year, I'd say, since we actually got chatting.
I was looking for your email, and it brought up the wrong one, and it was like 21st of January 21 when you sent me like the original Zoom. I was like, my God, that's like 18 months ago. Yeah,
that was such a long time ago. I mean, it's like so much has happened, which this is the reason why I wanted to do like a catch up kind of podcast episode, because loads has happened with you since then. Like I also
that has happened.
Like I was listening through the podcast, and we kind of mentioned about the fact that you were almost at 2,000 followers, and then since then like that feels like ages ago, because now you're like over 13,000, which is pretty amazing. So how has the growth been? Because I feel like it went pretty quickly.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of trundled along for a bit, and then I'm not sure what happened. I think it probably tied in with when I designed and released the pattern, to be honest. I think that's when there was quite a lot of growth, which was nice, because then that kind of growth kind of helped propel the interest in the pattern, which was really fortunate.
Yeah, that's really cool, because like your new pattern that you've kind of created, when did that get released?
The jumper got released 29th of January, I think.
Okay.
Around then, give or take.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's nearly been 6 months ago, which is crazy.
Yeah, it feels like you've had that for a while.
Yeah, but then I guess you were working on way longer.
Yeah, you were working on it for ages, weren't you?
Yeah, because I think I actually held up a version of it in our podcast, but I think that's the version that then got completely ripped out and started again. Yeah, because I made a version of it and it just wasn't quite right, and I ended up changing. I went down a needle size and changed the sleeve stitch a bit, and then made a second version when we were isolating with COVID, and I was like, well, what else is there to do?
So tell me about that writing process, because I think you were wanting to write a pattern last time we spoke, but obviously you've gone ahead and you've done it.
Yeah, I don't know how it ended up happening. I think it just got to the stage where I'd kind of made so many of other people's patterns. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is possible. And then had an idea that I wanted to kind of try and take forward. And then just kind of, well, when I had like a fair amount of time off work, kind of wanted to do something useful with my time. So that's when I kind of started messing about with swatches and stitch patterns and stuff, and then in the end just kind of took the plunge. But I feel like I know so much more now than I did then, even though that's only like a year or so ago. And then starting to write this second pattern has been a lot easier because of what I'd already learned.
Yeah, are you using like a tech editor or anyone else?
Yeah, so definitely, full disclosure, like I kind of just think that I'm so busy and there's so much going on, and I want to be able to do things properly, so I just have no issue with like me doing the ideas and then paying someone else to do the fiddly bits that it needs doing to get it to a good standard to sell in good faith. Do you know, like?
Yeah, I think that's quite a skill as well, like someone who is able to like kind of take that idea or that concept or a pattern that you've kind of roughly wrote and then turning that into like a full-blown pattern is quite a skill, which I don't think...
Yeah, I wrote like the pattern for the sample size, for my size, but it was kind of like scaling it down and then up in sizes that I just... It's so much more than you think. Like, you kind of think, because it was like a raglan design, you think, oh, I'll just do more increases and that will fit like larger sizes, but it's so much more complicated than that. Like, just learning like thinking about basic things that like as bodies get wider, they don't get taller, their arms don't get, do you know, it's not like a linear process. And it's like, I want to be able to do this properly and make something that's properly size inclusive, which is very important, but not just kind of nod to it, actually do it properly. And if I don't have the time and skill to do that, let's get someone else to help me so then I can release something that actually is properly size inclusive.
That's really cool. Yeah, I know as someone who's relatively kind of short and medium to big size that like just because like I'm a bit bigger doesn't mean that I need things a little bit shorter. So
exactly.
Having it really size inclusive is, I think, quite a big deal, especially with, I think mainstream fashion is like catching up, but like slow fashion that we're doing, I think has been a bit more of the like it's been on everyone's mind about trying to be size inclusive and trying to be out there for everyone, which I think is really important. Yeah,
it's certainly a hot topic and becoming more so, and I think like there are people are starting to challenge why some things aren't size inclusive, I suppose, which is a whole other debate. But yeah, I just was like, I want to be able to do this properly. I don't think I can myself, so what can I do to like make it more so? But then I also appreciate that, you know, that there is a cost to getting someone to professionally do X, Y, and Z that not everyone could just justify. But at the time, I was like, I can justify it and I want to justify it, so that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'll use them again for the second one because it was a very good experience.
Yeah, I mean, you are a full-time doctor, so I think you definitely have the excuse of not having enough time.
Yes. It's just tricky, like, to fit it all in. And I feel like sometimes you tread that fine line of like what started as a hobby and like for pure joy, like not letting it become like another stress, if you know what I mean. So it's always trying to like reevaluate, like, is this going to cause me more stress than it is joy? Well, maybe I need to readdress the balance at the moment.
Yeah, I think that balancing that fine line, like I've spoken to a few people who've been able to turn this hobby into their actual job, which I think takes a lot more than a lot of people think. Like,
so much.
And so much like more dedication, and like I think it's probably harder to find the line of your hobby and your own personal time. Like,
for sure.
I've thought about how that would look if I was ever to turn this into like a full-time thing. I would love it, but I think it would be very difficult, at least at the beginning.
But I think most people who, like, I don't know, if you just took designing knitting patterns as a niche thing, most people don't do it as a full-time thing, do they? Most people do it alongside something else. Unless you really make it to the big time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been able to speak to a couple of people, like, who've been able to, like,
That's amazing.
just switch it over, which is pretty incredible.
And do they find, like, that it still brings them joy, or do they find that they have to kind of...
So far, I think they're still in the, like, early stages, but, like, Fidesz Ramati, who's on Instagram, who I also had another catch-up, which will probably be coming out before this.
Nice.
Her and her partner have, like, bought a van, and they're, like, traveling around Europe. And she's also got, like, a Patreon as well, so she's able to, like, release her patterns on Patreon, so she's got a bit of a steady income. And then she's also, like, tattooing now as well, so her and her partner are able to, like, just travel around Europe in this, like, amazing van with their new dog.
Amazing.
And it's like, that's kind of the dream, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Oh wow, it must be really, really cool to catch up with people like a year, 2 years on from when you first did, and be like, what's changed, what hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's really good, especially at the moment, like, with Instagram's algorithm seems to be not the best. So like, even just like messaging a couple of people who I've spoke to, I haven't seen their stuff on my feed in ages, and then just messaging them has, like, brought their feed kind of back into my, like, I've been able to see it again.
Wow,
which is really
that's
cool.
interesting.
Yeah, I've, like, noticed there's a couple of people who I haven't really seen anything for a while, and then I've actually, like, gone to go and search them, and they've, like, done loads of stuff. So it's quite, I think there's a lot of people that have, like, moved over to TikTok, and then I think the algorithm's just doing some funny things at the moment, so hopefully it will kind of go back to a little bit how it was and see more people's feed.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I feel like a lot of people do rely on it as a marketing tool, and when an app changes not to favour that kind of demographic, it's difficult. I know, like, that's another hot topic at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're always trying to, like, progress and do new stuff and change what they're doing. Like, I think they're doing a lot more advertising and a lot more sponsor things, which is why I think that's what I generally see is people who have put money into Instagram to show their products. And less
I think
of...
I think it is easier to deal with if you try and just remember that, like, Instagram and, like, the whole meta thing, it's a business at the end of the day, and whilst small businesses might have used it to help them promote their business and find customers and things, it's not what the app's there for. The app's there to make money for itself at the end of the day. I don't know, you can get, like, a bit sucked into, like, oh, why has this changed? It's like it's not good for me, like, and get quite down about it. But I find it helps to be like, well, what's the app there for? Well, not for my business, and try and, like, make it a bit less personal.
And, like, I've been on Instagram pretty much since it came out, and like, I've seen it change, like, loads. So it does go through phases. Like, it tries new things. There's new forms of social media that they've got to try and keep up with and stay relevant. So
you use TikTok, don't you? I literally have never used it in my life.
Yeah, I've started. I was adamant. Like, I feel like at the beginning, like, when I started doing these podcasts, like, that TikTok was starting to become a thing, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do TikTok. I don't even do reels. And then I don't know why. I just thought, oh, let's just have a look. Like, TikTok's still going. It hasn't died off. I thought it would be a little bit like Vine, and it would be there for a little bit and then go. And, you know, it still might die off at some point. But I like the fact that it's still linked with Instagram, so I found when I post something that's into a reel, it gets more views and stuff. I think that's maybe where Instagram wants to go. But yeah, I think if you're going to go into TikTok, you need to have the mindset of like, you need a good week to try and follow the people that you want to see and just like anything that you would actually want to be on your feed, and then the algorithm starts learning fairly quickly. But at the beginning, it's trash. It's just utter trash. But there are some really good. People and like creators and knitters and crocheters and other artists that are
fair enough. So there is a
TikTok
little fiber community on TikTok.
Yeah, and it still has like Instagram still had that really like friendly, like helpful vibe. I think it's still there over on TikTok. So I think a lot of people have moved over. So at some point, maybe if you get time.
Maybe I'll segue.
Yeah.
It is mad though, like the power of social media. Like just last weekend, I went to a wedding of someone I entirely knew through Instagram. That's crazy.
I saw that. Yeah, there was a little group of you. Like
it was literally the best weekend ever.
The Nipper girl and is it? I can't remember her name.
Laura.
Yeah, who? Laura. Yeah. Like I thought that was really cool because I was like.
Rebecca from the Crow Bear was there as well.
Yeah, because I saw on your like stories. I was like,
it's so funny.
I didn't realize you were at a wedding first, and I was like, oh my god, you've like going to a wedding of someone like you've probably been talking to.
Yeah.
And have you met up with them before?
So I met Sophie, the Knit Pearl girl, literally a couple of weeks ago because she was on a course in Leeds. But that was the first time. But we've been doing like Zoom knit nights for, I don't know, probably like a year maybe. So it feels like we know each other really well, hence why we got invited to Caroline's wedding. But it was just that, like, we've actually never met in person before.
That's really cool.
It was fun. So yeah, social media is not all bad.
No, there's definitely elements, and I think definitely the fibre community on social media is generally, I've not really had any bad experiences. So
no.
I think there's definitely like toxic things out there, but I think if like in the real world, if you surround yourself with good people and kind people, that's the vibe. That's what you get back. Gonna be around. Yeah. While we're still talking about like kind of forms of social media, let's talk about your YouTube and like your podcast that you started.
Yeah, which I totally was inspired by you to do, by the way, so thank you so much.
That's all right.
It's been like, I think I saw like it's been just over a year now. I think I did my first one in like June 2021. But like most things that I tend to do, it was just like random post-night sleep deprived decision.
Yeah, there's a few episodes that I've seen that you've been like, this is really random, I'm really tired, but let's talk about knitting. You got your tea, you got a little snack. Like
that's basically it. That's basically it. Night shifts are bad for you, they make you do weird stuff.
Did I see you finished with your night shifts as well though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Forever. I know. So good. So good. Honestly, when I walked out of that hospital on Friday morning, I just felt like I was like walking on it, or walking on clouds. It's like, oh, bye. See you never.
That's really cool. I think because I caught some of because I think I was walking to work or something and was trying to watch your stories. But so you've finished with the night shifts, and are you permanently based with something else now?
Yes. So I think I confuse a lot of people with that story. I literally, I didn't realise so many people cared, but I had quite a few messages being like, oh my god, have you stopped being a doctor? Two people asked me if I'd retired, and I was like, I wish.
Not 29. Quite yet, a couple more years.
Oh, what a dream that would be. But yeah, I think people were like, oh my god, she's quit. And I was like, no, that's not the vibe. But it's very long and confusing, but the basics of it is that I'm training to be a GP. You have to do 3 years training if you're full-time, and a proportion of that, which is normally at the beginning, is spent in hospital. And then when you've completed that like bit, you then move from hospital into like working in GP permanently. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, because I think
yeah.
I didn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that you were quitting or leaving because
Or
because
retiring.
of the podcast. And I remember you saying that you had to do certain areas within kind of
That's
that
it.
work to get
Yes.
experience. So that's really cool. So
Exactly. That's
are
it.
you now working in a GP surgery?
I will be as of Wednesday. So like twice a year, doctors in training in the UK rotate. So first Wednesday in August and first Wednesday in February. So yeah, on Wednesday I'll be rotating to my new placement, which this time is moving to GP.
Amazing. Are you looking forward to it?
I am, it'll be. I am like nervous because it's just going to be very different because I've been working in hospital for 5 years now, which is a long time, and it's obviously very different types of problems, and you have access to minimal things, investigations and treatment wise, that you do in hospital. But I'm very much looking forward to like the gear shift and not working nights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can imagine having a bit more of a regularity to your
Yeah,
week.
I mean, I know people that don't mind it at all, and like if they're close friends or partners or whatever, also shift workers, then it doesn't really bother them. But my partner has like a regular 9 to 5 job, as do all of my family, and a lot of my friends. So I always feel a bit like isolated when I'm doing shift work. So it'll be nice to just tie in a bit more with like other people in my life. But yeah, going back to the podcast.
Yeah, going back to the podcast. Yeah, sorry, we just like had a little tangent, but it's fine.
little tangent. That's literally me all over the tangents. Yeah, do you know what? It's one of those things where you just see other people doing stuff and you're like, I really enjoy this. Maybe I should join in. And yeah, just like I said, kind of filmed the first one on a bit of a whim and then just went from there. Like it got a really nice response, like it was really fun to do. And yeah, now I've done 12 or 13, can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I was looking through and it looks like you've done about quite a few now. So
they come in like fits and spurts depending on what kind of work pattern I've got. But again, I'm hoping now that it's a bit more like regular hours, I'll be able to sort of schedule stuff a bit more regularly and not be so sporadic.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm literally all or nothing. I'm either like all in everyone's faces all the time, like woo, or like dormant.
Well, I think that will kind of become a little bit easier now that you're able to like get into a bit of a rhythm and not like, because that was probably your life with like shift workers, like you are all about everything or just like trying to rest.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. I feel like that's probably not a lifestyle or like a posting style that's favoured by the algorithm. They're probably like, who's this?
Yeah, I think they like kind of regular things. But to be fair, I was kind of like that as well. Like I did the first.
Also, who cares in some ways?
Oh no, I think the people who actually want to watch you, they'll follow you and they'll subscribe and they'll. But yeah, and I think like you've built up quite a good like fan base and like you've got quite a few followers on YouTube as well, and like your videos get loads of views, which is like really good.
Yeah, I think it did shock me, to be honest. Well, I didn't really know what to expect because I feel like when you've kind of been around on Instagram for a bit, even though you try not to, like I try quite hard not to get like embroiled in the numbers and insights and stuff, because I'm quite like if I allowed myself to be, I'd be quite an obsessive person about that kind of thing, bit type A. But like having been around on it so long, you kind of do get a bit of a feel for like what's a good response to a post, what's not, that kind of thing. But on YouTube, it's just like a different beast. I had no idea. And I remember when I made my channel and put my first video up, Laura from Penrose Knits, because she'd been on and doing it for a bit, she kept messaging me. She was like, this is really great. It's doing really well. I was like, is it?
Yeah, it's doing really well. Because I remember like when your episode came up on my podcast, like the first episode, like that was easily the most viewed episode as well. So I knew that when you started doing your podcast, I was like, people want to hear what you say and like are really interested in what you do. And it was really nice seeing you talk about your work, which I think is like it's just really nice hearing people talk about what they're passionate about.
Yeah, I like that too. Like, I think inherently I'm just such a nosy person, which is, I've said that before, probably why I'm a doctor, because I can just be like really nosy. And it is nice to just, I think one of the appeal of like podcasts and stuff is just to like a bit of an insight into other people's lives.
Yeah.
Ultimately, when you properly strip it down into like, why do we sit and watch people talk about knitting for 2 hours?
Yeah.
It's just, don't know. It's a fine line though, isn't it? It's like, what do you share? What do you not share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that line can be hard. Like, I've had ideas for videos and stuff before, and then I wonder how much of like my home life to share. But then I did a series on YouTube where I try and get people to talk about crafting and how that's helped with their mental health, which you were again a part of, which I think did pretty well.
Great.
Like, I really want to try and do that again as well, because I know that we're out of lockdown now, but we have other things to consider with like everything else in the world. So those kind of like mental health issues are still very prevalent, and I still think crafting and being creative in any shape or form is really important. So
for sure, I can definitely tell like when I'm not feeling, I can kind of gauge a barometer of like where my mental health and like mood is at by how much I craft. Like I know that if I'm in a bit of a rut or like I'll definitely like knit less, and then if I'm feeling better I'll definitely like do more and feel more creative and more inspired.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, what kind of things are you working on at the moment? Like,
well, my main thing that I just finished the knitting of yesterday is the cardigan to go with the jumper. So I literally finished, like, this is an example. So I like got really like inspired, knit like most of it a while ago, and then just had like the sleeves to finish and like just trying to work out how long I wanted them to be and the cuff decreases and stuff like that, which of a whole oversized cardigan garment is like what, like less than 5% probably. I just could not get myself the motivation to like get it done and get it finished. And then yesterday, you know, probably partly because like, you know, I finished those nights and like my mood's picked up a bit and like good stuff ahead and stuff, and I was like, right, now's the time.
Awesome.
So yeah, got that finished yesterday. So now it's sunny today. I'm gonna wash it and then block it and let it dry. Hopefully it will dry today, because I meant to get that out to the grader this week, maybe. If the pattern's finished writing up in time. Yeah, but if that doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. How long does it take from when you're like at that stage where you've kind of written your pattern or like graded it and stuff? How long does it take for the...
Well, I only have one experience to go on, and I think it will be a bit quicker this time because I think everything will just be a bit slicker. But last time I think I got stuff to the grader maybe like late August, September, and then to be honest the grading didn't take too long because that's basically one person doing the job, and then she sent it back, and then the tech editing takes longer because you send the file, they send a round of edits, you make the changes, and you do a bit of back and forth maybe like 4, 5, 6 times. And then I remember early October she was like, I think it's at the stage where you can put a call for testers out, so I did that, and then I think the test knit started like mid to late October, and then ran for like, I wanted it to be a decent amount of time because I've done a few test knits, and there's nothing worse than having like a deadline. And most people, everyone who's doing test knitting, really, again, getting into hot water, but is a voluntary thing, and you wouldn't. Pressure is just not going to make people enjoy it and want to do it for you again and enjoy the experience. And I just feel like if you have like a happy and like motivated and looked after group of testers, it's going to be better for you because you're going to get better experience, better feedback, better future response and stuff. So nobody wins if you're like cracking the whip saying, I want a whole cardigan knit on fingering weight in 4 weeks for a 5XL. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I think the test knit ran till like late December, and then I farted about for a bit with all the feedback. And then it got to like January and I was like, oh, have I missed the boat? Have I missed winter? Shall I wait till next year? And then I just needed a kick up the bum from some good friends to be like, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. So I did it. And it was the end of January.
Awesome.
So I think there's definitely scope for that whole process to be streamlined, mainly on my part. But the whole pattern is easier to write this time because it's like a spin-off, but because it's like the same kind of family of patterns as the jumper, a lot of the sort of like advice stuff in the pattern is still the same, like how to knit half fisherman's rib in the round, like that's the same.
Yeah.
All the YouTube links and stuff are already there. It's the same gauge on the same needle, so it's definitely been a bit slicker to write this time.
That's really cool.
Nice. And I'm hoping that the test knit call will get a good response again. Although I was overwhelmed with responses last time, which was amazing, but it didn't half make it hard to choose.
Yeah, I can imagine. With your following as well, I can imagine there's a lot of people that want to support you and want to have a go at doing this as well. So hope you all enjoyed that episode of the podcast. It was really fun getting to chat to Lizzie again. Thank you very much, Lizzie, for being on the podcast as well. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and all of that cool stuff. It really helps with sharing this podcast and getting it out there. As I kind of mentioned a little bit just before the conversation, I have released a pattern called my Big Cozy Hat pattern. I'm currently working on some more patterns. I'm hoping to release a pattern in December. And I'll also have some new episodes of the podcast as well, some little Christmas special episodes, and also a fairly big project that I was working on a while ago that I got asked to join, which I can't really say too much about that, but it was incredibly exciting. I got to meet some amazing people, and I have a chance to talk to them again on the podcast, so it was really nice. So make sure you look out for those episodes coming out in December. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of the places I'm there, so you can kind of get updates on when the next episodes and everything else coming out. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.